Hello and good afternoon. Firstly, just to introduce myself, my name is Matt Bass. I'm the Director of Engagement at ORCID. I am based in Amsterdam and recording this presentation remotely as I could not be there in person. I would like to take the opportunity just to thank the organizers for still including ORCID, as my colleague Anna Heredia, who had originally planned to be there in person, had some unfortunate or unforeseen family responsibilities and could not be there in person. We continue to look to engage with the community and apologize again that we could not be there in person. Briefly, this quick little recording will take you through a bit about who we are at ORCID and what we do, specifically focusing on visibility, interoperability, and providing credit for the work that individuals do. So to start, I always like to define a brief, analysis of the trends that we see on a global level around research management. And the first trend that we notice is that countries or communities are looking to document impact of research through these research performance frameworks. But at the same time, we also as a community trying to reduce the burden on the individual, meaning that we are trying to work towards allowing the individual more time to spend on research and less time on administrative burden. And the challenge is the more we try to document the impact of research through these performance frameworks, sometimes the more burden we put on the individual and the more we're requiring the individual to manually enter information into systems or report back to their institution or report back to their university or manually input information into publishing systems. And this is a burden on the individual. So these are very much cross-purpose, and this is where ORCID is in a very unique position in that we can allow for both the community to track the impact of research, but also reduce the burden on individuals. And we'll talk a bit more about that in a moment. ORCID, as you may know already, is an open organization. So we are a not-for-profit organization and we platform neutral. We integrate with many identifiers globally, so we do not see ourselves as a competitor to any other identifier. And in fact, we have integrated with many national identifiers and also other identifier platforms globally, as well as profile systems. And because we are open and neutral, we can create interoperability between these different systems. The registry is free for individuals to use, so there's no charge for an individual. They can register for their ID very simply, either via one of our members who has integrated with our system or directly on orcid.org. We are an independent nonprofit membership organization. What this means is how ORCID remains sustainable as an organization. So how we fund our organization is through membership of organizations globally. So organizations have the opportunity to join as members, and there's benefits to that, and I'll talk a bit about that in a moment. But also importantly, the members have a voice in what ORCID should be doing as an organization. So we are governed by a board completely comprised of members. We also provide our data, our software, and our APIs as open, and all our documentation. So we are a very open and neutral organization. The ORCID community globally is now comprised of 918 members across 44 countries. We have users in every country globally, and we have over 5.3 million researchers or individuals globally that have an ORCID ID. We also have 550 or over 550 systems that have connected to ORCID across all research sectors. And we have a growing community of consortia in various countries around the world that form a national consortium and allow many different organizations to participate in those consortia. So briefly starting, I would like to also specifically focus just on publishers for a moment and talk about where we are. I know that there's over 2,400 sources. I guess I would define these as publisher systems because in some cases it could be a journal, or it could be a actual publisher, but publisher sources that are collecting ORCID IDs and submitting these to Crossref. And this is via the Crossref API that I get these numbers. We also have an open letter that's the ORCID community of publishers came together and signed. And the open letter is a intent to require ORCID IDs. So it's not effective immediately, but it's an intent to require it at some point. And many of those publishers that have signed this letter have started requiring ORCID IDs. We have 61 publishers that have signed this letter. And what this means is it's a commitment to requiring ORCID IDs when the individual submits a manuscript. Importantly, it's also through authentication. So you should not be manually collecting ORCID IDs in your system. It shouldn't be manually entered because there's no provenance to that connection. So you can't update an individual's record with that. And also, importantly, we don't know if it's true and correct. We haven't got the permission from the individual to interact with the ID, and there could be errors in that. So I encourage you to use systems or upgrade your systems to make sure that you authenticate with the individual. So when the individual submits their ID into your system, they click a button and can submit their ID through authentication. Obviously, once the individual signs in, they can give permission to your system, and this allows you as a publisher to build your visibility and improve the discoverability of your content. So ORCID does not store the actual content, but the metadata that points to your system. So as an example, you could have this metadata flow into an ORCID ID of one of your authors, and that could be linked to their university, and they could click the DOI and redirect then obviously to your platform, which drives visibility and discoverability of your content. If we look at interoperability, ORCID works across sectors. So we define the three main sectors being publishers, employers, and funders. And very briefly speaking to that, an employer can add affiliation information, a funder can add award information, and publishers can add information about authorship. This also includes peer review. So if an employer or a university adds an affiliation to an individual's ORCID ID and a funder adds, say, grant information, you as a publisher have the ability to pull that metadata into your system. And then also from there, if you as the publisher have information about an individual that's published with you and you've got that permission to update their record, then you could add this information back to their ID. So this can flow then into the university system and also into the funder system. So it improves and builds interoperability and this cross-sector benefit. And this is often what we say at ORCID is it takes a community as a whole to build interoperability. And if every sector plays their role, they have the ability to collect information, but also connect information back to the individual's ORCID ID, reducing burden on the individual. If we look at credibility for the individual, they obviously have an ORCID ID. So I used Anna as an example here. We can see she's got her various names, where she's based. She's also linked various websites and also importantly other IDs, so such as a Scopus ID, Research ID, any other ID that you have, you could also link to the system. And then we have, as an example, specifically focusing on publishing outputs, but over here we could have a work and the source could be directly from SciELO. We can see the DOI and URLs here, so this can drive to a specific record or article within your platform. And we also have the opportunity for peer review. So if somebody does peer review in your system, you could also push this to the record and the source is from SciELO. This also gives the individual credibility for the work that they've done in their professional career. And finally, just to touch on some of the benefits, so as a publisher, you have the ability to use ORCID to match authors and reviewers across your different systems. You can simplify the sign-in to your system, so it's very simple for individuals to sign in. You improve the visibility, discovery, citation, and marketing of your platform, and you can provide credit, importantly, to the authors for the works and peer review that they have produced. And with that, I will end this very brief presentation. Anna Heredia is in my team and responsible for the Americas region. She is based in Brazil and manages our Americas engagement team. You're welcome to reach out to Anna directly. I've included her email address here. And obviously, myself, I'm also happy to field any questions. If you email membership@orcid.org, I will also look to address those questions. We welcome and continue to look for feedback from the community, and I wish you a very good conference, the remainder of the conference, and a good day further. Thank you very much.